Today is June 26, 2024. My name's Melissa Ackerman, and I have the pleasure of interviewing Cindy Sweet Moskowitz about her trip to Israel back in February of this year. How are you today?
Good, thank you.
I'm going to ask this question, but I know this is not your first time visiting Israel. When was the last time you were there before this particular mission in February?
Actually, it was in February of 2020, just before the pandemic.
Oh, okay.
And I was there because my brother-in-law had passed away.
Okay.
And so I went with my sister Kathy, and we landed and went down to kibbutz, like we almost always do when we land in Israel. And this time, when I landed, I opened up my phone, and she had a grandson.
Oh,
So
did you get to see the baby?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
so
exciting.
it was really a juxtaposition in every way.
How many times do you think you've gone to Israel?
Oh gosh.
Your sisters lived there how long?
My sisters lived there since I've been married, so
Okay.
almost 40 years.
Wow.
And I've been, I don't know, at least 15 times maybe.
Mm-hmm. What made you want to participate on this particular mission?
I just knew it when I got the information. I really wanted to see my sister and her family, and I wanted them, all of them, and I have a lot of nieces and nephews there, to know that I was happy to come.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted it to be a place that was okay to come to, and to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really wanted to, and I wanted to hear the stories, and just I wanted to be there. I can experience things myself better that way than reading, and I kept putting things down. It was so hard to read.
Mm-hmm.
And I really wanted to go, and I was so happy that it came up. And
Were you afraid in it at all?
mm.
Of your safety was not? Okay. What were some of the most meaningful things you experienced on this particular trip, which I know was very different from any of the other missions you've ever gone on?
It was very meaningful to be with people in the way that this trip allowed, so that we were with people who were fragile and experiencing the trauma, but we had been prepared from a trauma specialist. She was head of the Israel Trauma Coalition, who had told us, don't ask people how they're doing.
Mm.
Don't have any expectations. Just be there to help them bear it.
Really?
And
Okay.
so I appreciated the opportunity to do that in every setting that we were in, that we were letting them know that we were glad to be there. And in almost every case, the feelings were so intense that that I appreciated being able to maybe just take like the slightest kernel of their grief and shoulder it.
Mm-hmm.
So really, every setting was meaningful. Being with parents, being with kibbutz next. My sister's kibbutz is in the south, and it's not near the Gaza envelope, but it's near a lot, actually. And so when I saw all those pictures at the beginning, it looked just the same, neat little well-loved houses in neighborhoods with stones and backyards and tables outside. And so maybe being on the kibbutz scene was especially meaningful, but really everyone who was managing was important to be with.
Any other things that you did? Went to the site of the music festival, and I understand that was very powerful for many of the participants.
Very powerful. The person Yossi, who was talking to us, had mentioned, in fact, that he had just finished recently helping in the midst of an earthquake. I think it was in Japan. And his, when he was talking about the beginning, when he was first hearing the news and being asked to get home and get to the site, that there were some people in the community who were actually saying they shouldn't have been there anyway, right? It was a Jewish holiday, and he shuddered at that. And here he was with 10 children, clearly an observant Jew. And he said, every one of them are our heroes. And it was just unbelievable, the respect and awe with which he held, every life, clearly, and the way he managed through that and the respect he had for each individual. So, that was hard. There was someone singing very loudly, or actually kind of wailing in the background, but in a way that could have felt a little obnoxious, right? We were standing there, we were trying to listen, and he said, just let people be. Don't judge. Just let people be. You have no idea what's going on right here, right now in this moment, and what people are seeing for the first time or thinking about.
What would you want people to know about what you experienced?
There is such fragility there, and people now, the narrative is more clear, right? People can talk about what happened, but at the time, people were all over the place.
So raw.
Yeah. And it made me realize, and I just think we all need to, that that people's feelings about what happened, what people experienced, we just can't judge it or put it in a box. Everyone experienced this in a way that that is so personal and so hard. And everything that you heard and read is true. There's nothing to exaggerate. It was so real. And the people on my sister's kibbutz, which is a little farther away, I've known them, forever, like her buddies and her girlfriends. And they would say, well, where is everybody? We've devoted ourselves.
They were wanting the people to come and support them? I mean,
they
just
were
to
wanting them
show their support.
They were wanting people, they were so appreciative of anyone who came. Everyone was. Like, they couldn't believe we had come. And they were so appreciative to a one, but I didn't feel any sense that other people should have been here, this mission should have been bigger. I didn't feel that way. I thought, for me, it really worked to come. And for some people, they couldn't imagine it. Like, it was too overwhelming emotionally to think about it. Truly, I think it was easier to go than not to go, because you're actually with people and you see them living. But, and there were some people who were so fearful that they wouldn't have been, like, it wouldn't have been right for them to be there. But when you were there, when I was talking to my sister's friends, some of them said, I've devoted my life to progressive movements. Where is everyone? Where is the sentiment? Why aren't the stories more fairly represented? And they were just so struck by it, and had felt so bereft of who they thought were their peers really everywhere in causes, especially in progressive causes. And that was really hard to watch. But there was nothing that wasn't hard. And still, it was so good to be there, feet on the ground.
You would recommend
going? Of course. It's still Israel. It's still, like, beautiful. And the food's delicious, and the people are so happy that you're there.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's still Israel, but it's not the same.
Did you stay afterwards? Stay longer?
I stayed. I went to kibbutz, and yeah, did the usual things that I do with my sister. Right, I'm
Mhm.
running all over a lot. We have to go to the grocery store and the liquor store and the baby store, and
Mhm.
all the things that we always do. Because every day, it's just life goes on. But there was nothing untouched.
Does your sister have any friends or know people that were directly impacted?
Yes.
Families?
I mean, thank God her children were the ones who served or served in reserves, or, it was, when you were there, it was more clear that there are people in service, right, who are serving in the army. There are people who are on miluim, reserve duty, and then there are people who are volunteering to be reservists. And so we met quite a few people who were doing that because they had
Who just
to
signed
do,
up because they felt like they needed to.
do something. They all know someone, and they know them like well, and so there was no distance from the hostages, from the music festival, from people serving. There was just so few degrees of separation that you felt it everywhere.
Are there any programs or activities you've participated in since you've been back because of the trip you went on? Any things you've been involved in, or?
I'm involved in a lot of places, and so I feel like I've brought the story with me, and that people have been interested and wanted to hear. The mission group itself has taken on a life of its own, and there's some real activists on it, and so there's a lot of news sharing and information sharing and sort of connection from that. So I would say that it's just made my own ability to tell the story much sharper and more clear, and I'm an advocate, for telling it. But I can't think of a new place I've been involved.
Okay. Are there any other things that I might not have touched on that you want to be sure and cover while we're talking?
Let's see. I really appreciated the rabbis. There was great.
There were a number of them on the trip.
Yeah, there were a number of them on the trip, and great camaraderie, and they were participants, the same as all of us, but they had such a loving kind of eye on all of us at the same time, so that was really beautiful. And I appreciated that there was no attempt to kind of separate us from what was happening. There was not a lot of preparation before each site, how to talk, how to be, what to say, what not to say. Really, it was only the advice at the beginning about not asking how you are.
That's
or
really
having
very
expectations.
interesting. Yeah, that was
an
interesting piece.
Just
yeah.
be, and you can say, is there anything that would be helpful? And she told us in advance what they're going to tell you is tell the story. And what you were feeling there is that there were so many assumptions that Israelis were in the midst of letting go of, like the idea that children are safe asleep in bed, or the idea that that even their safe rooms are built for missiles and not for people entering them. The idea that the IDF would be right there. The idea that the country as one would be addressing this as sort of one mind. Big assumptions. And then the traumas being so complex, and the women and the sexual trauma, and having the language to talk about it. We heard a story that the trauma coordinator told us, that the day after, so October 8th, there was a call for therapists. And I think she said 475 or something like that immediately called in for training because it was new territory, being able to talk about those traumas and the lack of feeling safe, the sexual trauma, and also talking to families. And so this core of therapists, sort of came into action like October 8th.
And the horror's not over yet.
No, there's really no good news. And that's why I think it's very, it definitely builds morale for people to go. And just to hear voices and to fill places up. Because there's really no good news.
Right. And it sounds like it was a very meaningful, impactful trip for you.
Very meaningful and impactful. And when I went at the end to my family, they were so appreciative that I knew that I had been places that they hadn't been. And that I knew and understood. And they didn't have to tell me the story and make sure that I really got it. I could just go and be with them, and I already had the story. And so I appreciated so much that I was able to do that, and that I had the mission was available for me to, to participate in. And I don't regret. I knew I wanted to go. From when I saw the mission, I appreciated that I had the means and the ability to do it, and that my husband and family were all in, and that I was able to let go of really everything. There were no distractions on the trip. People were on their phone only to take a picture or to jot something down, but the attention to the people and what we were seeing was like 100%.
Everybody was really committed to being there and experiencing it, not being distracted.
Nothing. There were no distractions. I was saying afterward, I don't even know if anyone was gluten-free. Like, that's how much people weren't needy, They were just taking care of themselves, arriving where they were supposed to be, and doing what they're supposed to do.
Well, this has been a wonderful, wonderful interview, and I really appreciate your sharing your experiences with me.
Okay, well,
Thank you,
really
Cindy.
appreciate
Thank you
being
for
able to.
going and being so articulate.